So last week we went back to we had just finished up Christmas, and we were talking about Christmas and rediscovering what Christmas is all about. Christmas isn't about the presents that we give or get. You know, the Bible says it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. And the greatest gift that was ever given was Christ. That's what Christmas was all about. And I think part of the reason of Christmas this last year was it kind of helped people refocus on Christ. But yet, at the same time, Amazon made more money than they've ever made. And I don't know if that was Christ or not, you know. But they had their thing just went out the roof. And now, so we came to Revelation chapter 6. And in Revelation chapter 6 is where the angels are going to start opening up the seals. And things are going to start unwinding. And so a lot of people have said, okay, well, during this period of time, will we be here? And as we were sharing, if you go back and read, the Bible says this. It says, these things that are going to occur, that we're going to show you, will not happen to those whose names are written in the book. What is the book? The book of life, where our names are. So, in all of this, a lot of people get so concerned and worried that as Christians, are we going to have to see all of these things that are transpiring and stuff? No. But the problem, and so they say, well, wow, that's great, that's wonderful. I don't have to go through this, so I don't have to be concerned about this. Well, you do have to be concerned about it. And the reason is this. If you're not here, there's going to be a lot of other people that will be. And the question is, have you shared enough about Jesus that they'll know that they need him? And will they be willing to give up their life physically for him? Because during this period of time, if you know the Lord, you're dying. If you come to say, yeah, I'll take Jesus and not the mark, they're going to kill you. Because Satan doesn't want you during this period of time. And so we were talking last week, and let me just kind of recap real quick, that it's talking about a rider coming on a horse. And a lot of times, a lot of people say, well, that's Jesus. But when you look at the thing in Revelation chapter 6 in verse 1 and 2, it says that he's coming with a bow, not an arrow. He doesn't have any arrows. And so the words that they used there are not the same words that they used when they describe Jesus later on, when Jesus is coming riding on the white horse, leading the army of God into the final battle with Satan and Satan's demise and his destruction. It also said that the rider on the horse would have a crown. And they used the Greek word called Stephanos, or Stephanos. And the word there meant it was a wreath of victory. And if you go back and look at anything that happened in Rome, they had the Olympics. The Olympics was way back, even before our time. They had, and when the winner of the race won, or the winner of whatever Olympic event they had, they would give them a wreath, and it would be woven, and it would actually it would serve as a crown, saying that they were the winner. The thing about that wreath was it was made out of natural flowers or leaves or whatever. And so what ends up happening is that crown that they had would not last forever. And so it would begin to wilt away. And so when they talk about the rider here, they use that word for crown as a crown that would wilt away. Understandably, ladies and gentlemen, the crown that Jesus is going to be wearing is not going to be a temporary thing that's going to wilt away. The crown that Jesus is going to be wearing and being crowned with is one that will last forever. It is permanent. So there's a difference in the dialogue back and forth. It also said that on this rider, that he was going to be given some authority or ride out, and he's been on conquest. And yet, when you talk about Jesus, it says that Jesus, when he's coming, that he's dressed in fine linen, white and clean. And the things that was here, when you begin to look at the things of this, the rider was nameless, but yet when you look at Jesus in Revelation chapter 19, when it talks about him coming on the horse, it talks about him becoming as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Now here's where we continue. One of the things that we need to understand is in the early days, there was a guy, and they tell stories about a pirate by the name of Blackbeard. You all heard of him? Okay. He was a real person. This is not a fantasy. Okay? And so what Blackbeard was known for was basically robbing other ships. Ships coming across the seas, carrying money, goods, whatever. They would rob these ships. But what they would do is this. During the day, Blackbeard's ship, they were real tall. All of the ships back then were really, really tall. And they would fly a flag, just as ships today. They basically will fly a flag of their origin or the nation that they're coming from. And so what Blackbeard would do is during the day, as he's approaching these ships, he would fly a flag that they thought was a friendly flag. And so what he would do is he would sneak up on him. But then all of a sudden, once he got really, really close to them, close enough that they had already let down their guard and they weren't able to fight or defend themselves, all of a sudden what Blackbeard would do is he would tell his men, lower the flag and raise our flag. Our flag, which was like the skull and bones and whatever, was their flag. And so what they would do then is they would raise their flag and catch the other people unaware, by surprise. And they would turn around and pillage the ships and take away everything that was there. And so what you need to understand is this, that when we start talking about things in the riders of the horse and everything that's happening here, in the conquest that's happening, here's the deal. At the beginning, and even kind of prior to, you hear the talk about the Antichrist or the beast. And a lot of people say, well, won't you recognize him? Won't you understand what he's here to do? You fail to realize that he is the Blackbeard. That what he will do is he'll be friendly. For instance, let me just share with you, like right now. How many people in this pandemic are hurting? Physically, a lot of sickness, right? Economically, losing your home, losing your job, losing your retirement. And all of a sudden you're in demise, right? So what happens if someone comes and says, hey, hold on a minute. I'm going to help you with your health. We've got stuff that's going to make you well. You're losing your home. Don't worry about it. We're going to give everybody free home. You need a job later on and an education. We're going to give you free education. Or we're going to give you free medicine. Don't worry about food. We'll take care of it for you. We will pay for everything that you need. We'll take care of it. What happens? All of a sudden, you've got these physical needs that are being promised to be met by someone that you're hurting. And you're saying this doesn't happen. Hold on a minute. Have you ever heard of a political campaign? Huh? Matter of fact, I'll give you some right now. Georgia. Runoff. 2 senators. If the 2 Republican senators lose, it now becomes a 50-50. And guess what I heard? Here's what we're promising. We will guarantee you that as soon as, if you elect us, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everybody gets their $2,000. Very first number 1 bill that we're going to do. There also, as I was sharing with others, is a phrase that Joe Biden is using that you need to go back and look. And it's called building back better. Go research it. It is not Joe Biden's phrase. He coined this from someone else, and you better go back and look and see where he coined it from. They are also talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution. You need to go read about what the 4th Industrial Revolution is all about in the writing. Because, ladies and gentlemen, they are promising the world. And this is exactly what is happening. People say, are you Republican or Democrat? I am neither. I am a child of God. Okay? That's who I am. And I will vote whoever goes along with the values of God. That's who I vote. And I'll get away from the rest of it because that's not where I want to go. Okay? But you need to understand something. It says that this writer, and Daniel calls him this. Daniel says that he is the prince that shall come. And Paul says that he is the man of lawlessness, the man doomed to destruction. John calls him the Antichrist, the beast. He will be the final world dictator. And that's exactly what he will be. He will be a military person or a leader that is bent on military strength and conquering. Ladies and gentlemen, people do not understand why the United States does not and has never until a few years ago, any time a United States Armed Force member was ever sent into a place along with a United Nations whatever force that was there in protection. The United States never, ever took their flag off their uniform and put on the flag of the United Nations. Never. It was a refusal. We will be a part of it, but our military is not under control of the United Nations. Our military was under the control of the President of the United States, up until a few years ago. And then all of a sudden, military personnel that are U.S. personnel that are going into what are called UN whatever, aggressions or whatever, now must come underneath the leadership of that. America, ladies and gentlemen, is not a player in the end. Don't get picked. It's just because we have given away our rights one after another and after another. Whenever you give your rights away to politicians, ladies and gentlemen, you don't get them back. How many times have you heard them promise you this will only be for a little while? And a little while means nothing. I'll rest my case on this one. Social Security. We're going to take your money out of your check and we're going to put it in a Social Security trust fund. It was sat in that Social Security trust fund until the 1960s. And I believe it was Lyndon Johnson who took us off the gold standard. And there is no gold in California or Fort Knox. It's an empty vault. The gold is gone. And basically, we are printing money that is absolutely worthless. You need some more money? We'll just print some more. Who cares? You know, we're so far in stinking debt, we can never get out of it as a nation. And what did they promise you? We'll promise you that when you retire, you'll have your Social Security. Well, back in the 1980s, all of a sudden, you had companies like GM, Ford, and all of these that all of a sudden, their retirement funds were no longer vested. They had more money going out than they had sitting in there and could ever earn. And so they had to start asking for bailouts. And Social Security went to the general fund. So all your money that you pay into Social Security goes in to pay whatever they decide, a new couple Smithsonian museums, or I beg your pardon, my pardon, but paying for people in Washington D.C. that do absolutely nothing but make your life miserable. There are employees. We're not their employees, okay? But yet they act like you guys work for them or we guys work for them. And this is where it's coming to, because what's happening? The more power and authority that is given to a person that's in a government position will go to their head. Because why? One of these days there's going to be one person that's going to be the Antichrist, the beast, the man of lawlessness, the one that is doomed to cause destruction, who is coming, the Bible says, out of the sea. And Revelation also says that the dragon gave the beast his power, his throne, and his great authority. This is what's coming. This is what's going to appear. We need to understand. That's the first seal. The second seal it talks about in John chapter 6. It says that when they opened the seal, it says that John heard a voice of the second living creature, which happened to have the appearance of an ox. And if you look at what happens, the description that they're giving of the first four actually fall in line with sometimes when you start talking about Jesus and certain things that are there. But look, it says that here's what happens. And the creature's command is to what? Come up here, John. I want to show you something. And he says it's a fiery red one, which is no doubt representative of bloodshed. Because what has to happen? If I'm going to take over, there are going to be people who are going to be standing in my way. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to kill them. See, if I just capture you and take you somewhere, you could still cause an uprising and overthrow me. Well, guess what? You ain't getting that chance. And this is what the Antichrist or the beast is going to do. He is going to be there to make sure. If you've got anything against me, you don't want to be here, guess what? You're out of here. I'm killing you. And this is what he begins to do. The Bible says that he was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. You're saying, well, that's not going to happen. Hold on a minute. Let's go back year in review and let's forget about the pandemic. You know how many people were killed last year in Chicago? 733. Go into Middletown. Go into Hamilton. Go into Cincinnati. Go into any city, any place you want. And you hear people say, well, people are killing each other. Hold on a minute. I was telling Diana, I was driving here yesterday morning, and it's early. It's Saturday. It's not Friday. Okay, it's Saturday, early in the morning. I get on 129. There's a truck over here on my right side that's going slower than what I deem necessary. So I decide to get over in the left lane and do my speed limit. And I won't tell you what my speed limit was, okay? But I went around them. I get there, and there is a car in front of me over in the left lane. This is one of the things that irritates me about drivers in Ohio. They believe that the left-hand lane is a lane that you are supposed to drive in. No, you are to keep right and set to pass. Get out of my way in the left lane. So I get over, and I'm in no hurry, so I get over, and I'm behind this person. And lo and behold, this car comes up behind me, and they're riding my bumper. I can't get over, and I can't go forward. And so they start flashing their lights. And I thought, really? What do you want me to do? My car is bigger than the car in front of me. Yeah, I probably could push them out of the way. But I can't get over and run that person off the road, and I'm not going to do this. So I was in a joyous mood. I started waving. With all 5 fingers, by the way. I was just waving, saying hello. But later on, I thought about that. That was the most stupid thing to do in your life. You want to know why? I have no idea who was in that car behind me. I have no idea if they had a gun. Because anymore, they'll shoot you and never think anything about it. And just go on. It just so happened that finally, I'm not a sexist, but it was a young girl in her 20s going, I have no clue where. And so what does she do? She gets over and slows down to 65. I thought, dude, lady, chill out. It's Saturday morning. But the problem is when we start talking about it, it says, and they're going to cause people, he's going to make people kill each other. You're saying we can't do that. Hold on a minute. How many protests that were out there where people came with weapons to kill people? You don't think it can't happen? Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the prefaces of this. This is why I'm saying he is coming soon. And I'm not talking to get you all wrapped up and all in anguish and everything else. I'm telling you because here's the problem. The church needs to wake up. Because we need to tell people he is coming. We've been telling them that for over 2,000 years. He is coming. But let me say this to you. We are at the beginning of everything being put into place for him to come. I don't know if I'm going to be here when he does. But if I'm not, I'm going to make sure that people know that this is what to look for. It isn't something to just say, hey, let's skip it. It's in the book of Revelation. I don't like it. It scares me. It ought to scare the hell out of you. It really should, because if it doesn't, ladies and gentlemen, then you're going somewhere that you don't want to be and you ain't coming back. So that was not a curse word. It was used in the right context. But James tells us this, that you need to understand something. Here's what you hear from people. Why is it that God allowed, or did God do this pandemic? Why did God allow all of these people to be wiped out? You need to understand something. God, the Bible says, does not use evil for good, or he'll turn evil to good. But God is not the cause of this. But you need to understand something. God will allow the instrument of Satan in order to bring judgment upon his people. Sometimes I hear people say, why isn't this happening to me? Well, why? Because God told you. You need to clean up your life. I told you I wanted you to go talk to that person. And there are times that God will draw back and allow certain things to occur to bring judgment on his people. But you need to understand something, and that is this. God will also use the devices of evil men to bring chastening and judgment upon his people. But you need to understand James chapter 1 and verse number 13, and that is this, that God remains righteous and cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. The things that happen, ladies and gentlemen, are not a temptation by God. You need to understand something. You and I were created with so much promise. God had a plan for all of us, every one of us. And his plans, ladies and gentlemen, they are awesome. But you know what happened? We've been poisoned. If I can use this analogy, which isn't correct, but you all probably heard it, we've all taken a bite of the apple. And all of a sudden, sin, it's looking good. It's tasting good. Maybe we need to take another bite. Maybe we just need to sit down and relax and let's just kind of soak it all in. But listen, we need to understand that we have caused our own undoing, not God. What has happened? The effects, hate. What does Jesus say? Jesus says, how can you say that you love me when you hate your brother? If anyone says that they love me but they hate their brother, they say they are a liar and the truth is not in them. You cannot hate people and be a Christian. Okay? I hear people all the time say, boy, I hate that person. No, you don't. You dislike what they're doing. You hate the sin. You don't hate the person. You hate the sin, but you love the person. So what happens? We have hate. We have violence. What happens anymore? You know, Here's what breaks my heart. A newsflash. I quit looking at a lot of them that come across my phone. And it'll say, newsflash. Here's what just happened in so-and-so. A 3-year-old was shot this morning by a drive-by. By a bullet that just went into this house. Because why? Because somebody got mad that somebody did this to them, so now we're going to repay these people over here, and the problem is they got the wrong house. The young lady in Louisville that was shot and killed. Others. All of a sudden, it breeds violence, thinking that violence is going to solve the issue. And what ends up happening is violence breeds more hatred. And more. It's like, I got up early and I was watching All in the Family. And it was one where Gloria and Mike had moved out of the house and they went to California. And Archie and Ann are coming for Christmas. And they've got a daughter that they're raising now, and they're coming there for Christmas. And Gloria and Mike are getting a divorce. They're separated, but they had to pretend that they were together. And the problem was that all of a sudden, Archie is finally Edith. Edith was talking to Gloria, told the story, but anyway, she told it to Archie, and Archie goes busting in there, and everybody's crying and all of this, and Archie turns around as they're arguing and everything going on and all of the things that are happening, and Mike says, well, why don't you ask her about the guy she's been seeing? And Archie turns around to Meathead. And he says, Meathead, I've never liked you. I never thought you were good enough for my daughter. But I want to tell, and he turns around to Gloria and says, but you want to know what? In this case, you're wrong. You're not my daughter. And you think, the hatred that he's feeling at that point in time is now causing a violence between there and stuff. And he had to come back to realize that, hold on a minute, he was totally wrong in what he said to her. But yet he said it. And now he had to go back and make amends. And this is the problem, that what happens is with the violence. The violence also begins to bring about abuse everywhere. What else does it bring about? Racism. Why is it? You know, and Jonathan and as we were talking last week, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care who you are, where you come from, we all came from the same roots. Okay? But we're all different. We can't be the same on the outside. But by God's help, we can all be the same on what's on the inside. And showing of his love. So what happens is we begin to start differentiating between people and segregating people in different areas and stuff. And it's not just by race. It's by sex. It's by this, it's by that, whatever, thoughts, religion, you know, and we begin to do this. And so what ends up happening? By racism, by greed. I mean, honestly, look at what happened during the pandemic. The pandemic's going on. Someone gets shot. And what's the first thing they do? They go into the area and they start breaking down the windows. And you tell me why somebody needs 25 large screen TVs that they're loading up in a U-Haul. Or all of the shoes, or the this, or the that. The greed says, hold on a minute, I can't afford it, so guess what I'm going to do? I got me an opportunity, I'm going to go take it, and then I'll do something with it. Or, not that, but I want something that I can't have, but I'm going to make sure that I get it. It doesn't matter that my family suffers for it or whatever. So we begin the greed, the lust, the deceit. And all of these are things that are happening and things that are going on. And ladies and gentlemen, what you understand, this is the second seal. You think you've seen it all now? Honey, you ain't seen nothing yet. To live in that society that's going on, you think you have a hard time living now? At that time, they're going to be pitting people against each other. And it's going to be who's going to survive. The third seal. They said, let's open the third seal. And he says, come. And the third living creature that appeared at this time now is a black horse. We had a white horse, a red horse, now we have a black horse. And what happens is this, that when you look at history says this, that at the aftermath of war, whenever there is a war, and that's what the second horse did, they opened up war against each other. What happens? There is always inflation. There is a lot of times poverty and hunger. You say, well, no, hold on. Well, let's go back a little bit. 1915. Let's start there. There was a war, right? It ended in 1919, I believe. Right? When did the Depression start? Yeah. I think it was 1929. And the stock market it was the stock market crash of 1929, 1930. That war caused a lot. Inflation, things started going up, prices started going up, and boom. Come back to the Second World War. Go look at Germany and Japan. Their cities were destroyed. Gone. A lot of lives. There were so many lives gone that they were at zero population forever. It was like forever. That the government started paying people to have children. And even when we were there in 1976, and when we went there, and then when my son Tom was born there in 1978, if you were to, as young soldiers and young people, and we have children, if there were elderly German women who had survived that period of time of the Second World War, when they saw you carrying a child, they just adored that child. It didn't matter that you were American. This was a child. They cherished children because a lot of their husbands, their fiancés had gotten killed. And a lot of their lives were lost. And so what do we see? We see the inflation and everything that's going on. So this is where, if you remember, Paul says in Romans chapter 8, in verse number 22, you need to understand something. He says this, that the whole creation has been groaning. Even the trees and stuff are wanting all of this to end. The birds, the fish, all of them are groaning. Why can't we go back to what it was in the beginning? Why are we having to die? And they're there. And then it also said that for a denarius, for a denarius was generally a thing that used there was a day's wages. And do you know what the Bible says it would do? It would buy 2 pounds of wheat. And you know what 2 pounds of wheat would make? A loaf of bread. So what he's saying is, in this time frame where there's inflation and poverty, that during this time when this third seal is open, that for a day's wages, you'll buy a loaf of bread. You won't be buying steaks. You won't be going to McDonald's or Taco Bell. You can't afford it. You're talking about businesses and stuff that are going out of business now. Ladies and gentlemen, at this period of time, all businesses are probably going out of business. The only ones that's going to be there are the people that have the money, because there will be no middle class. It'll be poverty where you're working so that you could just buy a loaf of bread. That's what the struggle. We think that we've got things bad now. Ladies and gentlemen, it is nothing compared to what he's pointing people and warning people about here. And this is why it behooves us to tell people, to warn people about what's going. He says this is what's going to happen when the third seals. There are things that we need to understand, and that is this. We talk about it all the time is, well, what am I going to buy? Medicine or food? I think what you're going to be saying is you're going to get sick and die, because you're not going to afford medicine, because you can't even afford to live, to eat. So you can kiss the medicine and the medical stuff, just go by. Chapter 6, verse number 7. He said, then we've seen a white horse, a red horse, a black horse. Now number 4, when he says, when the Lamb opened the fourth seal, he said, I heard a voice of the fourth living creature say, come. And as with the first 3 seals, he also saw a horse. This time he says he saw a yellow horse, like a yellowish pale one. What was it? Death itself. Death is coming. And you need to understand some things. To them, death was like a thing. They used the word Hades, okay? Meaning that the grave or even this realm was the souls of the dead. And you need to understand something. He says that, well, death would take the body, Hades would take the soul. And what was it? Their assignment was to kill. And with the second and the third would be this, that there would be famine and plague. And so what would happen? It tells you that basically the wild beasts of earth. And so what happens would be this. People are killing each other. Now, what do we do today when someone dies? We have somewhere, someplace to take care of the body, and we'll cremate or we'll bury. But think for a minute. How much did you hear about in cities like New York and other places where there was so much death in the hospitals and in the nursing homes that they had refrigerated trucks to where they had to take and store the bodies before they could properly dispose of it? But what happens when there's so much death that you can't properly dispose of the body? And the people just die and they're left. The fourth seal says the wild animals will come out. And it's not a pretty sight. And this is what he's talking about with death and Hades. Because basically what you have are the animals, the wild animals, the ravenous animals. You're talking about dogs, wolves, coyotes that will come out of their habitat and they will just pounce upon the meat and the people that are laying there. You say, this is not a good sight. No, it isn't. But this is what he's saying. And this is what's here. So in Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 through 11, I think I had them up there. Yeah. He says, look, when he opened the fifth seal, here's what he said. I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slaughtered because of the word of God and the testimony they had given. They cried out with a loud voice, Lord, the one who is holy and true, how long will you judge those who live on the earth and avenge our blood? The first four are judgment on the people who are living on the earth. How long are you going to wait? How long are this going to go on? Bring the verse back, can you? And he said, so they were all given. Can you go back to verse number 10, please? Yeah. So they cried out with a loud voice, who is holy and true. How long is this? Now verse 11. So they were each given a white robe, and they were told to rest a little while longer until the number would be completed of their fellow servants and their brothers and sisters who were going to be killed just as they had been. God knows exactly the number of people that are going to die during that period of time. He knows. Just as, ladies and gentlemen, God knows the number of people and the last one that's going to be saved before all of this ends. He knows. He's got that number. And we don't know who that soul is. So here's what I say to y'all, and this is why I say that it's important. And I'll finish with this, and then we'll pick this up next week. Let me ask you a question. And I'll give you an option. You can do that today, okay? And I won't say that you're sinning, okay? Let's say that the drawing of the lottery is going to be held tomorrow, Monday. And somebody came up to you and told you, here's the numbers that are going to be drawn. And here's what's going to happen. The jackpot is going to be at $1 million. If you knew, and I know everybody's going to say, this is a trick question because he's saying, okay, I shouldn't be doing this, and I shouldn't be doing this, and I shouldn't be doing this because it's all sin, and he's going to try to get me to admit that I'm a sinner, and that I'm this. If that causes that, I'll take the blame for it. And I'll tell God it was all my fault. Okay? Now, whether he'll take that or not, I don't know. But here, it's just an illustration. You know the numbers. You know when it's going to be drawn. Would you not go and buy a ticket? right? You go buy a ticket. If I knew exactly what the numbers was, because honestly, if I got the numbers, I'm thinking this is coming from God. You know? So let me ask you this question. What if God said that when the 1 millionth soul gets saved, I'm going to end this and take you home. And right now, we're sitting at 999,000. 999,999. All we need is just one more. One more soul, and God's going to end this, and we can go home. What would you do? I have a big old sign on me saying, hey, who's the sinner? I need to talk to you. No, really. Would you not, if you knew that you had the possibility of talking to the next person that's going to end all of this, would you not go looking for them? Yeah, I mean, most of the time you're going to try and find somebody close to you, hopefully. Okay? Can I say this to y'all? Why aren't you? Don't care what the number is. Because here's the command. Go into the highways and the byways and compel them to come in. It may be the next one that you talk to that lead them to the Lord, that gets rid of all of this. We don't know. But this is why the early church was better than the church of today, because they were always looking that today could be the day, this moment could be the moment that Jesus was coming again. When he said, I'm going away and I will come back, they got up every day looking for him. We get up every day and say, oh, here comes another day. Sun's up. I got to go to work. I know this is going to be a mess. I got all of these things that I got to do. And I really don't have time to talk to anybody today. And God says, you know what? I got this person over here. They're the 1 millionth. They're the 1 millionth. Will you go talk to them? It is my job. It is my job to give you the truth. And my job is to tell you we have become the most laziest people in the world as Christians. We have become, if you want to call it whatever, we have become consumer Christians. I'm saved. I'm satisfied. I'm going to heaven. And God, if I have to talk to somebody, I'll do that. But please don't bring them to me. And he's saying, hold on a minute. Somebody came to you. What if somebody hadn't come to you? What if somebody who told you about Jesus had the same attitude that you have? You're putting guilt on me. You're absolutely right. I want you to feel guilty. Why? Because we are. We're guilty. We've become so preoccupied with everything else that we forgot what it was that we were told to do. And that's why I said this year, the pandemic may still be here at the end of December. So what? We still are. Jesus still gave us a job to do. And ladies and gentlemen, we are to do it. To the best of our ability, we still do it. He did not tell us to stop because you might catch it. You might. We might. You may stay in your house and still get it. Okay? There was a guy who they think gave 43 people in a hospital it, because what did he do? He tried to think about bringing joy to people, and he came in with a suit that was circulating air. And he was inside of it, and he had COVID. And guess what was happening? The air that was circulating inside of the costume was going out into the hospital where the people were working. You know? We don't know where it goes. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know. They guess. They're guessing. I'm saying I know something for certain. Jesus is coming. And he's coming to get us. And when he comes, I'm out of here. Pandemic or not, I'm gone. And if you all come back next Sunday and I ain't here, oh man. Oh, something happened. Just pray it wasn't the rapture. Okay? Just pray it wasn't the rapture. So this morning, let's stand real quick.